Friday. It is a Friday show. We have been getting a ton of great response for some of the stuff we've been covering over the last couple of weeks, and it's going to continue. Just getting really excited about how excited some of you guys are getting in the face of some of this breaking news, looking to see what we're going to say about it. Scott's been doing unbelievable research, and just we're really proud of what's been going on lately. And we are pulling up on 100 shows pretty soon, Scott, right? Like maybe 80 something. I mean, man, that went quick. Thank you so much to everybody who has supported the show, subscribed, visited the website. Thank you to everybody. Thank you so much. And we're just wrapping up another week that we're proud of, really, honestly. And I can't wait to get into this. There's some extra context. We have gotten some breakdowns about what happened inside ABC and Disney Tuesday night leading into Wednesday. And the Hollywood Reporter did the best reporting on this. You should check out that article if you want to, go behind me and get some extra context. But what I'm going to break down is how this all played out within Disney. In the wake of what Kimmel said, and I'll remind you what he said. I've got it right here, just so we all are fresh on what exactly all of this bleep storm was over. He said, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it." That was the monologue that got all of this started. Now, immediately after that happened, there was a social media bleep storm, right? It kicked off on social media first, as it always does. As everything always does. It was social media first. Within hours of that, the stations, their management, the leaders of ABC stations across the nation started calling Disney leadership. Okay, they were expressing concerns. Inside of Disney, right after, multiple conversations began between Jimmy Kimmel and executive level management within Disney. They started talking. Meanwhile, right away, immediately, they began talking. All right, so there was a really good open line of communication between Kimmel's team and the executives at Disney right after this. And the talks continued. Now, while the talks continued, a lot of pressure mounted on Disney. Pressure from advertisers. They started calling, lots of them, angry. And pressure from Nexstar and Sinclair. Nexstar, they're the star of the show, right? Nexstar is the crux of all of this. They began pressuring. Sinclair began pressuring. Sinclair Broadcasting, a sympathetic broadcasting outlet, very sympathetic to conservative and right-wing causes, and this administration in particular, owner of many ABC stations. They're right at that 40% threshold. And by the way, you think Sinclair isn't keeping a very close eye on what Brendan Carr decides on this Nexstar Tengen merger? Because that would give them, this merger for Nexstar, this $6.2 billion merger will give them 80% market share. FCC rules say no more than 39. Sinclair's already at 40. So if Brendan Carr is sympathetic to Nexstar and allows that 80% to go, what's Sinclair going to be allowed to do? So Sinclair is like a remora eel on the bottom of a whale. They're not as big as Nexstar, but they're going where Nexstar is going. They came out and they condemned Jimmy Kimmel's comments right after Nexstar did, immediately, saying this isn't in the interest of the public. Now, here comes Sinclair. Right after the Nexstar phone calls come in, Sinclair phone calls come in. And both of them, in lockstep, threatened to preempt the show, applying all of this pressure. Okay? And Disney wanted Jimmy to tone it down, bring the temperature down. They were very interested in how he would address this. Okay? And the response they got from the Kimmel team was not satisfactory. Okay? They didn't like what they were hearing. Instead of turning the temperature down, in their words, he was going to fan the flames of the MAGA base. Now, the people at Kimmel said he was going to address it, and he was going to defend what he said, and he was going to respond to what the president had said. He was going to defend what he said, and he had no intentions of making this worse. He wanted it to go away as much as Disney did. But he made it very clear that he was not going to apologize. That wasn't good enough. That wasn't good enough. When that news came out of the Kimmel camp, the talks between Kimmel and the execs broke down. They hit a stalemate. By the time the stalemate happened and they stopped communicating into Wednesday, we're talking Wednesday now, 66 of their 200 affiliates said, we're not going to carry the show. Nexstar and Sinclair said, we'll go black. We don't care. We'll go black. So, Bob Iger himself and Dana Walden, the head of their TV division, finally had to get involved because it was ultimately their decision, and they made that decision. They made a joint decision, which they characterized it as, quote, the last resort, which was to suspend the show. And Walden, give her credit, she delivered the news herself to Kimmel. And in that conversation, a lot of stuff was said, but Walden never demanded that Kimmel apologize. I'll give her credit for that. Now, Kimmel and Disney have both declined to comment right now. But there's news coming out of Disney. There's sources that are willing to talk about this and what's going on at Disney right now. Here's what's really interesting. Here's what's interesting. Today, Disney is going to meet with Kimmel. They're going to meet. And they're going to discuss possible avenues for this show to make it back on air. Now, the soonest this can happen is September 22nd. That's the soonest they could possibly get the Kimmel show back on air. Okay? And it's crazy. It looks like they really want the show back on air. Even when the talks broke down late Wednesday, they were approaching the live to tape time. There's a specific time they have to start taping live if they want to make it to the show time. They were so close to that the show, the crowd, right, of the attendance of the show, they were already lined up outside the studios. That's how close they were. It really does show you, at least on its face, that Disney didn't want to do this. I really do believe they did not want to do this. Okay? And they are going to discuss how he can get back on air. Now, they want to find a path to Jimmy's return that walks the line between two forces. They are not demanding that Kimmel apologizes. They are not demanding that. Kimmel's not saying he's going to do that. They want to make sure Kimmel comes back on his terms, but at the same time, they want to satisfy the critics. And by the critics, I of course mean Trump and all of his right-wing mouthpieces. They are, it seems, desperately trying to find a way to get him back on air. And David Letterman had something to say about this, by the way. I thought what he had to say was really, really, on the mark and timely. He said, you can't go around firing somebody because you're fearful or trying to suck up to an authoritarian criminal administration in the Oval Office. How do you really feel, Dave? Oh, my goodness. Woo. He said, that's just not how it's done. Well, Dave, I know you came from an era of television where that was not how it was done, but there's a lot of new precedent being set under this administration, and this may be how this is done now. This may just be how this is done. Trump has been threatening licenses, okay? And I got thinking to myself, how do we know Trump's been threatening licenses? Well, what is he saying? When you have a network or you have evening shows and all they do is hit Trump, I would think maybe their licenses should be taken away. And I was thinking to myself, is this a really savvy move by Disney? Because they're going to have to replace that content. They're going to have a new show go in that slot. Do they know full well what the response from the administration and Brendan Carr will be if they start flirting with an actual idea to get Kimmel back on the air? Now, Scott and I were talking about how that could happen, maybe not in his slot. One thing Scott said, it was real. I thought that was, what about streaming? What about streaming on one of their platforms? Could they bring him back in that fashion? Okay, so let's talk about that for just a second. Disney either could be completely dedicated to getting Kimmel back on the air or a part of their network in some way or another. They could be. And a streaming option would be one of those options that maybe could fly under the radar. But a decision like that, to give Kimmel a voice under their company, would be a clear shot across the bow to Trump. Now, last year, they paid $15 million in a lawsuit to Trump. And here we are again. Or does Disney know full well that this administration and the FCC will get angry about this, will get fired up about this, will push back against this, and start to threaten ABC? Maybe threaten ABC with another larger lawsuit. So on one end of it, they can show their fans, and Jimmy, we love you. We know how important Jimmy was to you. He's important to us too. And we're going to do everything we can to get him back on the air. They can look like they're not betraying anybody. So if they have to replace Jimmy, those fans might willingly come back over to whatever news show. But if they betray Jimmy or somehow disrespect the fan base, those fans might not migrate over to the news show. They might go find something else to watch. And at the same time, they know if we start to flirt with putting Jimmy back on the air, this administration and the FCC will hit us or threaten to hit us with something so hard that no one will be able to blame us for then dumping him. What if they threaten us with double the lawsuit than last time? What if they threaten us with our license? What if they actually come after our license? Is that so ridiculous? What did Brendan Carr say? We're going to continue to hold these broadcasters accountable to the public interest. And if broadcasters don't like that simple solution, they can turn their license into the FCC. That's what they're saying. So, is this an ultra savvy move by Disney? We're going to look like we're going to respect and value Jimmy and his fans on one end, while knowing that the response from the FCC and the administration will give us coverage for when we ultimately dump him and wash our hands of this whole situation. When they threaten us with double or triple the lawsuit than last year, or possibly pull our license, no one will blame us for dumping Jimmy. That's pretty damn savvy, if that's what they're doing. But even if that's not their plan, that may be how it works out. And it may be to their favor. Maybe they really do want Jimmy back on the air. Maybe they do. They paid out that last lawsuit, and it was a bad look. It was a bad look. They have lawyers. They have money. They could have fought it. New York Times fought him in 2023. He sued them over their coverage of his campaign and how he was covered on their network. And they fought, and they won, and they even got Trump to pay for the legal fees for that case. So ABC could have done that. That is a path they could have taken. So can we expect them now to have a backbone? Can we expect them now to stand up for Jimmy Kimmel?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
So I want to make it clear, there's going to be a Democratic majority in just over a year. And to the FCC chairperson and anyone involved in these dirty deals, get a lawyer and save your records, because you're going to be in this room and you're going to be answering questions about the deals that you struck and who benefited and what the cost was to the American people because that happened.
That's what I'm talking about, Eric Swalwell. That was with the Patel hearings, right? That is what I'm talking about. It was afterwards. Okay, just after the Patel hearings. I'm sorry. That was Eric Swalwell. I don't know about you, but I felt something positive from that clip. and I analyzed it later with Scotty, and I said, I think it's Eric's confidence that the majority will swap. He just oozes confidence that the majority will swap. And I think it infected me. I felt an overwhelming positivity after I watched that clip, not just the threat of holding some of these people responsible, God forbid, but the confidence with which he is predicting a swap of majority. I love it. And he's talking about the dirty deals. The Ellison family was so willing to wine and dine Donald Trump, going to events with him, firing Colbert, paying out the $16 million lawsuit, and then lo and behold, they get what they want. The Paramount Skydance merger. Boom. Play the game, wine and dine, do the deal, bend the knee, you get the deal. And here we are. The Nexstar merger. Now, the whining and the dining, we don't know so much about that. But the bending of the knee, that's going to remain to be seen. It's going to remain to be seen. And I can't help but ask myself, who is next? Who's next on the hit list? Now, there has been a dizzying array of lawsuits, investigations, threatened financial assets. The new lawsuit against the New York Times for the Epstein estate stuff. The ABC lawsuit last year settled. Now what are they going to be facing? The Paramount lawsuit settled. The cancellation of Stephen Colbert. The cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel. He already mentioned Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon. He mentioned them. I mean, then there's The View.
A lot of people think there are other shows on ABC that maybe run afoul of this more often than Jimmy Kimmel. I'm thinking specifically of The View. And President Trump himself has mentioned Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers at NBC. Just wondering, do you have comments on those shows? And are they doing what Kimmel did Monday night? And is it even worse on those programs, in your opinion?
Well, look, you can be unfunny. That's fine. And a lot of people are sort of saying that, well, people are punishing Kimmel because they don't like a joke that he told. But,
this is Brendan Carr.
Obviously, what he said was not a
talking.
joke. It wasn't presented at all that way. But when you look at these other TV shows, what's interesting is the FCC does have a rule called the equal opportunity rule, which means, for instance, if you're in the run-up to an election, you have one, partisan elected official on, you have to give equal time, equal opportunity to the opposing partisan politician. So far, so good. But there's an exception to that rule called the bona fide news exception, which means if you are a bona fide news program, you don't have to abide by the equal opportunity rule. And over the years, the FCC has developed a body of case law on that and has suggested that most of these late night shows, other than SNL, are bona fide news programs. And potentially, I would assume you can make the argument that The View is a bona fide news show. But I'm not so sure about that. And I think it's worthwhile to have the FCC look into whether The View and some of these other programs that you have still qualify as bona fide news programs and therefore exempt from the equal opportunity regime that Congress has put in place.
You hear what he's saying there? He's saying we have to reevaluate, let's say, The View. Because if they're not real news, attention Fox, if they're not real news, well, then we have to have our own bat crap crazy version of The View, getting equal time as The View. That's what's fair. That's what the law says. If The View's not news and it's just bat crap, opinion, what we see as bat crap opinion, you have to listen to our bat crap opinion in equal amounts on that network. Same thing with Fallon, same thing with Myers and any other late night comedy. Not if this new FCC decides that's not news, well then either give us our bat crap crazy right-wing conservative nonsensical show or you're gone. So The View may be next, huh? Okay, The View. Who else? What will the fate of South Park be? Now, I mean, they have been nailing it. It's pretty crazy how much they've been nailing it. The first episode with Jesus Christ, calm down, you're going to ruin it for all of us. Do you see what he's doing? He's suing everybody. Shut up. Just bend the knee. They absolutely nailed it. And they also did an episode on Kirk. Now, they pulled that from the replays on the network on Comedy Central, right? They won't show it on Comedy Central randomly like they'll show other South Park episodes, but they left it on the streaming service. And even right after the episode dropped, before Charlie Kirk's untimely demise, Kirk himself thought it was funny. He thought it was funny. He called it kind of funny. He enjoyed it. But we've seen they don't really seem to be interested in holding the same values dear that Charlie did. That seems to be the case as they wage a war on free speech in the name of a free speech warrior's death. So I don't think it matters much that Charlie thought it was funny. Does President Trump think it's funny? Kristi Noem didn't think it's funny. She commented on it, called them mean, right? Said they attack women. They attack everybody. They attack everybody. So who's next? And, you know, a few weeks ago, I broke down at the end of one show, they keep attacking things that their people like. The Republicans keep attacking stuff that Republicans like. They attack weed. They attack Disney. They attack insulin prices. Now they're attacking all these comedy shows. You may be surprised to find out how many Republicans, conservatives, even MAGA, think South Park's funny as hell and has thought that since they were 16, 17 years old. You may be surprised, but nope. They don't care about that. They'll tell you, conservatives, what's best for you in terms of the culture war. Forget about how you feel or what your gut or your brain is telling you. We'll provide the narrative. We'll provide the spin. Sinclair, they go a long way to providing spin and propaganda. We talked about Sinclair, right in lockstep with Nexstar. You want to see propaganda? You want to see narrative being controlled by a media outlet? You want to see falling in line propaganda? Check this out.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely...
I gotta stop it there. They are saying in lockstep, that's like literally 100 different Sinclair anchors saying in lockstep that the enemy is controlling the narrative and trying to control what you think. The irony of it all, the hypocrisy. Like I said, you can cut it in slices and serve it up. It's so thick. By the way, thank you, Scotty. You just handed me this, that New York Times lawsuit that I mentioned. Judge struck it down. And this was in the Middle District of Florida. Remember I told you that's where this case was? The Middle District of Florida. This guy was a George H.W. Bush appointee, 1991. U.S. District Judge Stephen Meriday has struck down, due to merit, the lawsuit against the New York Times by the Trump administration. How about that? You want to see the fight? There's the fight. There's the fight. What are we fighting? Well, you just got to listen to what they're saying. You got to listen to what this administration is saying. It's important what they're saying. They're laying the groundwork. They're laying the messaging for those who have decided they are all in. They're laying the groundwork. You have to pay attention to what they're saying. Let's pay attention to what Don's saying.
Yeah, go ahead. Anybody?
Mr. President, who would you like to see? Mr. President, are you going to ask Brendan Carr to weigh in on other late-night hosts that you have said should be off the air?
Late-night host is on network television. There is a license. I'll give you an example. I read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. I get 97% negative, and yet I won it easily. I won all 7 swing states, popular, I won everything. And if they're 97% against, they give me only bad publicity or press. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away. It will be up to Brendan Carr. I think Brendan Carr is outstanding. He's a patriot. He loves our country, and he's a tough guy. So we'll have to see.
We're going to have to go after their license. They're negative against me. We got to go after their license. And I've got my pit bull, Brendan Carr, co-author of Project 2025 and my actual taskmaster. How ironic is that? One of his taskmasters, honestly. I mean, Brendan Carr had much more to do with putting Donald Trump where he is than Donald Trump's mouth did. He said, look, we'll just take their license. Randy called this one. She called it a short period of time before her show came to an end. She said the licenses are going to be the next to fall. The licenses will go. They will take people's licenses, and here we are. We're going to have to go after their licenses. We don't like what they say. We'll pull it.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett breaks things because someone has to.
That's something that should be talked about for licensing too. When you have a network and you have evening shows and all they do is hit Trump, that's all they do. If you go back, I guess they haven't had a conservative on in years or something, somebody said. But when you go back and you take a look, all they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. They're an arm of the Democrat Party. Thank you, everybody.
Boo hoo. All they do is make fun of me. All they do is hit Trump. That third person, like, he has no idea how douchey that is. Could you imagine if I went to, like, watch football on Sunday with Scotty and he gets to the bar and I'm sitting there and he said, hey, what's going on? I said, you know, my wife got on Brett's back like you wouldn't believe. And so Brett told her this, and then she told Brett this and that, and Brett was very angry. Scott would be like, you're a douchebag, dude. Why are you talking like that? If anybody in public or your job or anywhere talked to you like that, you would think they're the biggest douchebag you've ever met. That's just a little aside. Just kind of how I feel about that third person stuff he does. I mean, nobody else in Congress does that. Nobody does that. All right. I mean, you got to listen to what these people say. Listen to them when they tell you what they're going to do. You got to listen to Pam Bondi when she goes on Katie Miller's podcast and she says there's free speech and then there's hate speech and there's no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie. Hate speech is free speech, is what Charlie would have told you. And you know, it's so funny. I mentioned to you, Tucker Carlson had the right perspective on this. We went and Scotty grabbed the video for me. Thank you, Scotty. We gave you the quote, but let's hear from Tucker. Directly responding to what Pam Bondi said on Katie Miller's podcast. Let's listen to Tucker.
You hope that. You hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if it is, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever. And there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. A human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views.
Strange bedfellows, huh? You know, it's so funny. Every now and then, these despicable people's moral compass guides them directly in alignment with ours on certain issues. Every now and then, despicable people, their morality just collides with ours. and aligns for a moment and makes moments like this. Rand Paul, you know, he's out here saying, you can't go blow up ships. You can't go blow up ships in other people's territory. I feel that way too, Rand. But then at the other side of his mouth, he'll defend, you know, the president's right to trade stocks, you know, and go and gladly sign the one big beautiful bill. Marjorie Taylor Greene calls for the death of political opponents, dresses up like a Chinese weather balloon, says the most despicable crap a human being could ever think of. And then every now and then her moral compass will collide and make sense. And she'll come out and say, hey, these survivors of the Epstein scandal need to have their voice heard, and we need every name on that list. It's crazy. Their moral compasses will guide them just for a fleeting moment to meet ours, to meet our intersection. It's crazy. It's crazy. He nailed it. He nailed it. Now, Bondi later backtracked. Shortly after that, she backtracked. She said, if you want to be a hateful person and simply say hateful things, that is your right to do so. There you go, Pam. Now, I have a hard time believing she consulted Donnie before she said that. And I wonder if something like that would get her in hot water with Donnie. I really do wonder that. Is she allowed to say even that? Is she? I mean, listen to what Don's saying. Don goes straight to sixth gear. Okay, so Don, I told you about this interaction with this reporter. That was Jonathan Carl of ABC. That ABC, the ABC that's feeling the pressure right now. Jonathan Carl said to Trump, "Is hate speech free speech?" And what did Trump say to him? Bondi should probably go after people like you because you have a lot of hate in your heart. And then went out to brag to him how your company just paid me $16 million for hate speech just like that. Listen to what they're saying when they're telling you what they're going to do. J.D. Vance is out here. He's encouraging his fellow Americans to report people. Report your coworker, your neighbor, your friends, your family. He said, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility. That's what he calls what they're doing now. Civility. That's what he calls this. That's what he calls this. Civility. There was a study that I thought was interesting. Kevin Walston, a political science professor at California State Long Beach, did this extensive study. Okay? Now, he conducted this study and found that 80% of Americans still believe violence is never acceptable to stop free speech. But there's a disturbing trend. 93% of baby boomers think violence is not acceptable. 86% of Gen Xers think violence is not acceptable to stop free speech. 71% of millennials think violence is not acceptable. And only 58% of Gen Zers think violence is not acceptable to stop free speech. So, not only is the younger generation possibly going to get on board with the halting of free speech, maybe out of our administration, or maybe they're on board with the halting of free speech like Tyler Robinson gave them with a bullet. And it seems that as the younger Americans go, the more willing to get on board they are of both these things. Stopping free speech and stopping it violently. Are you disturbed? I was disturbed when I read it. I'm disturbed delivering it to you. 58% of Gen Zers think it's wrong to stop free speech with violence. Only 58%. Trump is on board with a total and all-out assault on free speech. How ironic, but he is on board.
But Charlie said, that there was no such thing as hate speech. He obviously, no one anticipated what happened to Charlie, yeah, but you have always been. Now.
Okay. So he obviously does not hold dear what Charlie held dear. Even Pam Bondi came out and said, hate speech, you're kind of allowed to do it, as long as it stops at speech. Trump is on board with an all-out assault. He's on board with an all-out assault. But there is a fight. There is a fight. What does the fight look like? The fight looks like that lawyer throwing out the Trump lawsuit on the New York Times. That's what the fight looks like. If ABC decides to put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air, that's what the fight looks like. That's what the fight looks like. And the Democrats in Congress are attempting to do their part. They put forth the No Political Enemies Act, or NOPE. It's a bill that would create a specific legal defense for those targeted for political reasons and allow them to recover attorney fees if they were subject to government harassment for expressing their views. It would also make it easier to sue federal officials for abusing their power to silence critics. Something this meaningful has no chance of getting to the floor in a Republican majority. None. And they know that, but at least they're making the Republicans say no to free speech. Say no on the record to free speech, Republicans.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
On the morning of August 25th, Secretary Kennedy demanded two things of me that were inconsistent with my oath of office and the ethics required of a public official. He directed me to commit in advance to approving every ACIP recommendation, regardless of the scientific evidence. He also directed me to dismiss career officials responsible for vaccine policy without cause. He said if I was unwilling to do both, I should resign. I responded that I could not pre-approve recommendations without reviewing the evidence, and I had no basis to fire scientific experts. He told me he had already spoken with the White House several times about having me removed. For 3 decades, I have worked at the intersection of public health, science, and technology innovation, always challenging the status quo and welcoming the changes that come from research and discovery. Even under pressure, I could not replace evidence with ideology or compromise my integrity.
Susan Monarez, ex-director of the CDC, testified. Now, she put out an op-ed piece about a week ago, and we brought it to you. She said a lot of things in that op-ed piece, and she repeated a lot of what she said because she promised in that op-ed piece that she would say everything she put in this piece under oath in front of the Senate, and that's exactly what she did. She put her money where her mouth is, and she showed up, and she said a lot of things, and she took a lot of questions. And not all of it was friendly, obviously. A lot of the Democrats were critical of Kennedy, all right? A lot of them, know that Kennedy's got a history of anti-vax advocacy, and they wanted to highlight what was at stake, especially in terms of the health of our children and the potential for infectious disease to reemerge, and especially the erosion of public trust in the CDC. These were the concerns of the Democrats. The Republicans, they pressed Monarez on details about meetings with Kennedy. They wanted to catch her lying. They wanted to suggest that she was an unwelcome and unfriendly presence at the CDC, that she was not in line with Trump's ideals and what's important to this administration, and they attacked her. Of course they did. Of course they did. She said a lot of things. She said she was holding the line on scientific integrity. And she cited concerns about her ability to continue leading the agency while preserving evidence-based decision-making. Evidence-based decision-making. She said a lot of stuff.
I was fired for holding the line on scientific integrity, but that line does not disappear with me. It now runs through every parent deciding whether to vaccinate a child, every physician counseling a patient, and every American who demands accountability. I want to end where I began with my confirmation hearing. I spoke then about the value of hard work, paying my own way through college, and my lifelong dedication to science and public health. On August 25th, I could have stayed silent, agreed to the demands, and no one would have known. What the public would have seen were scientists dismissed without cause and vaccine protections quietly eroded, all under the authority of a Senate-confirmed director with unimpeachable credentials. I could have kept the office, the title, but I would have lost the one thing that cannot be replaced, my integrity.
What she's saying has value, and I want you to hear what she's saying, but I'm going to sidetrack you for a second. Some of you, it's been gnawing at you, as it has been gnawing at me. Who does she look like? Is it gnawing at you? I got it. I just nailed it. It's Angela from Who's the Boss. It's Judith Light. That's who she looks like. It was killing me. Tell me I'm wrong. Email the show. Comment under the show. Tell me I'm wrong. Angela. That's who she looks like. It was killing me. Okay, listen. It's these vaccine schedules that really have a lot of people bothered, including Senator Bill Cassidy, a former doctor. He's been bothered by it. He's bothered by this ACIP committee, and we're going to get to that. But it's the Kennedy confirmation when he promised he would not mess with the vaccination schedule, and that's just what he is doing. One of the things he pointed to was the current vaccine schedule. It's too many shots for young kids. That's Kennedy's talking point on the vaccine schedule. Rand Paul, he understands the assignment. Roger Marshall, he understands the assignment. As they began attacking Monarez on that point, you want to hear Rand Paul tell brilliant Dr. Susan Monarez how to do her job? You want to hear Rand Paul do some serious mansplaining, or we're going to call it MAGA-splaining. Rand Paul MAGA-splains Susan Monarez's job to her. Listen to this.
Dr. Monarez, I agree with you completely that we need to restore trust in public health. But in order to do so, we have to have a discussion about the actual science, and we can't have a discussion of this, about all vaccines are good, all vaccines are bad. This is about specific vaccines. It's about specific age groups. It's about specific policies. Does the COVID vaccine prevent transmission?
The COVID vaccine can reduce viral load in individuals who are
Does it prevent transmission?
When you have reduced viral load, you will have reduced transmission.
But in other words, it doesn't prevent transmission. You can still transmit the virus if you've had the vaccine. In fact, there's been reduced ability to interfere with transmission over time. And what we've found is the most recent one since Omicron is down around 16% reduction, if there is a reduction. Does the COVID vaccine reduce hospitalization for children under 18?
It can.
It doesn't. The statistics are inconclusive, and the reason you can't prove that it does is there's so few people under 18 that go to the hospital. The numbers are extraordinarily small. There's like 76 million kids under 18 in our country. 183 died, and a few thousand went to the hospital in 2020 and 2021. And since then, the numbers have dropped precipitously, and the idea and the issue needs to be discussed. But the COVID vaccine is not reducing hospitalization. It's not statistically significant. Does the COVID vaccine reduce the rate of death for children under 18?
It can.
Once again, it can. That's a ridiculous answer. No, it doesn't, and there is no statistical evidence that it does reduce the death rate. These are statistics. We've looked at it. When they approve,
I hear what you're saying, MAGA. I can hear it. I can hear what you're saying. You're saying, "Hey, Brett, Rand Paul's a doctor too. He's an eye doctor. He's an eye surgeon. So calm down. Calm your tits. All right? He has no business telling CDC expert, veteran, genius Susan Monarez the details on COVID transmission and child deaths related to it. Get out of here, Rand. Get right out of here." And even to that, she said, look, the data associated with those recommendations has been validated and vetted, and that is the current schedule. Okay? She stood her ground. She stood her ground. The White House had some things to say about what she said. The White House said no one, including Secretary Kennedy and President Trump, is calling to throw out the entire childhood vaccine schedule or eliminate access to life-saving vaccines. Anyone suggesting that such actions are even on the table does not know what they are talking about. I call bull crap. Because as we speak, you're allowing our bat crap Surgeon General in Florida to go to greenlight unvaccinated children rampant in our schools. Just everybody unvaccinated, just go. Measles, whooping cough, all these things, go at it. Have fun, go wild. They're already test casing it. Don't tell me that adjusting the vaccine schedule is not on your agenda. It's being test cased right here in Florida. So don't tell me. There were some main takeaways from this hearing. One, she was joined by Dr. Deborah Howery, who resigned. We talked about her. She was mentioned in that op-ed piece. She's one of the, tenured, professionals that have gained a reputation for being professional and competent and have all earned the respect of their peers at the CDC. Deborah Howery was at the top of that list. She resigned with a few others. She was there as well. And, like we showed you, Susan discussed her firing, saying she couldn't go along with the recommendations that you want me to push. I'm not going to greenlight everything that comes out of your ACIP committee. And I'm not going to fire other officials. I'm not going to do it. So he fired her. And the Republicans, they came at her. We didn't grab this clip, but noted amateur pugilist Mark Wayne Mullins, he had an interesting little back and forth with Susan. When questioning her about meetings that she had with RFK, he said that she's lying. He said, I know you're lying because one of the meetings that we're discussing was recorded and your answers aren't correct. And then Bill Cassidy, who has been very upset with RFK and his handling of the CDC and begrudgingly gave his confirmation vote with the assurance that the vaccine schedule would not be adjusted, and that's just what's happening. So Bill Cassidy's pissed. Bill Cassidy shot right back at Mark Wayne Mullins, and he said, look, if you've got such a recording, you need to release it right now. The HHS needs to give us that recording right now. So what did noted amateur pugilist Mark Wayne Mullins do then? He told reporters, I was mistaken about that. There was actually no recording. Leave me alone. I don't want to answer questions about this anymore. And there were other talking points. Sanders, Bernie Sanders especially, he was very interested in the CDC's independence. That was a big concern for him. They were very organized on which points they hit. A lot like Patel, hitting different points of the Epstein investigation in lockstep with each other, right? Playing off each other with different varied questions about the same topic. This was very similar to that. So Bernie's portion was about the Fed's independence. There he is. Bernie wanted to know about Fed independence. Let's hear from Bernie.
The American Osteopathic Association, representing over 200,000 doctors, and the American College of Physicians, representing over 160,000 doctors. They believe that vaccines are safe and effective. Do you agree with them?
I do.
And what is your concern? What are the long-term implications for the well-being of our kids and the future of our country if faith in vaccine science is undermined?
I believe preventable diseases will return. And I believe that we will have our children harmed for things that we know they do not need to be harmed by. Polio, measles, diphtheria, whooping cough. I worry about the ramifications for those children in illness and in death. I worry about our school systems. I worry about our medical institutions having to take care of sick kids that could have been prevented by effective and safe vaccines. I worry about the future of trust in public health.
Would you agree with me in suggesting that the overwhelming body of scientific and medical thought believes that vaccines have been a major public health advance for the people of this world.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. And she talked about going forward, her fears going forward. She shares the fears of many people. She shares the fears with a lot of people, not just in Congress. But Monarez and others, they fear for the next outbreak. They think we're not going to be prepared for it. Whatever it may be, we're not going to be prepared. Monarez, or Howery, Dr. Howery said, we're going to see kids dying from vaccine preventable diseases. Howery had some other stuff to say. I like this Howery. She's a spark plug. Now, I like a lot of the stuff she had to say. We'll hear from her.
I first learned that the Secretary had changed our CDC COVID vaccine guidance on an social media post. CDC scientists have still not seen the scientific data or justification for this change. That is not gold standard science. The Secretary's office ordered the removal from our website of the CDC scientific document on thimerosal, an additive to vaccines that science has shown is not linked to autism, while allowing an unvetted presentation on thimerosal to happen at ACIP, containing scientific assertions that were not assessed for data quality and bias.
ACIP. That is a focal point of concern for Democrats and a few Republicans. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. That is where this battle is taking place. That is the battleground right now for pushback on RFK's bat-crap crazy theories and policies that he's looking to put in place in terms of vaccines. It's the ACIP committee. It's ACIP. Now, they are meeting today and tomorrow. ACIP is today and tomorrow. Oh, no, yesterday and today. I'm sorry. They met yesterday and they're meeting again today. And the panel's recommendation is usually very influential on which vaccines insurance companies themselves can cover. They're very influential on the vaccine recommendations and which vaccines will be covered by insurance companies. Well, one insurance trade group already fired the first shot. They said no matter what comes out of ACIP, we're not changing our coverage. We don't trust it. We don't trust it. Bill Cassidy said, whatever comes out of ACIP over the next couple days, do not take that as Bible. Do not take that as fact. You cannot trust what comes out of this ACIP. As soon as RFK got there to HHS, one of the first things he did was fire all 17 members of ACIP and replace them with bat crap crazy sympathizers. People who are completely willing to put forth recommendations based on RFK's theories and beliefs. They will sign off on anything and everything RFK wants to push. And people are scared. Dr. Monarez is scared. I'm very nervous about it. There is a real risk that recommendations could be made restricting access to vaccines for children and others in need of rigorous scientific review. They're scared about the ACIP. People are shooting at the CDC. The best minds at the CDC are quitting, leaving, fleeing. They're under oath testifying to the incompetence of RFK. Dr. Howery said he needs to resign, period. HHS, they responded. Andrew Nixon, an HHS spokesman, pushed back against Monarez's testimony, alleging her remarks have factual inaccuracies and leave out important details. They said, here's the reality. Susan Monarez was tasked with returning the CDC to its core mission after decades of bureaucratic inertia, politicized science, and mission deep corroded its purpose and squandered public trust. Instead, she acted maliciously to undermine the president's agenda and was fired as a result. Where does that leave the CDC now?
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett breaks things will be back Monday to break it all down.